Good morning, it's Dave at ATI Watch Reviews. Please smash the like button, please smash the subscribe button for more awesome watch content. Little wristwatch check, my favourite Mudmaster, GGB-100, absolute beast. That bezel is to die for, in fact that dial is to die for. But today's video is about another Gshock, one that is regarded, and it is actually called the King basically, but it is regarded as the King Gshock, the King G. This is the GXW for Wave Scepter, it's got a multi-band, 56BB, obviously this is the blackout version, 1ER. Now, Casio have done this model. Well, they've done this series, I should say. Okay, which is obviously the GX56 or the GXW-56. They've done that series for about 12 years. So this style of watch, you can buy them in 2010 actually. Whether you could buy the Wave Scepter one then, well, the multiband one, I don't know. But we could quickly find that out on Shockbase or equivalent. But they've done this series in many different colours, and some of them are so subtle that you wouldn't believe it's a different model. Like they've done a black and gold version of this that has like the mildest amount of gold. Obviously, it's still negative, but it has gold writing. So it might be a little bit more legible. This is the stealth model, obviously, the all black, and it does suffer from poor legibility. But we'll talk about that later. Anyway, a little overview. This model is regarded as one of the strongest Gshocks, and I'll explain why later, but it is not a normal Gshock. It has additional strength and shock resistance coming from various properties. One of them is the alpha gel property that is put into this model, and I'll explain about that later. So this is a 55 by 54 by 12 by 17.3 model. Obviously it's not a sensor model, but it does have the solar capability and the synchronized timekeeping, radio synchronized timekeeping. It also has, you know, your world time, all that kind of stuff that you get with it. It doesn't have the sensors, doesn't have thermometer, pedometer and all that stuff. But obviously it has all the standard Gshock features with a tough solar and multiband, and it has additional shock resistance basically than your standard Gshock, which already has some order of magnitude more than a normal watch anyway, so you can understand how powerful this watch actually is. Now, starting off with sizing, okay? With sizing, it is a beast. It's a slab on your wrist, basically, and it fits bigger, in my opinion, even though the specs don't suggest it. It fits bigger than Mudmasters and G Steels, many Mudmasters and G Steels, even though it is light. It is only 88-90 grams, so it's light. That is a fact, it is light. But my measurements were, I think, 17.3, 17.2 to the highest part of the bezel. However, obviously the actual crystal, which will be a mineral crystal, is probably 2 mil lower. So it's not that thick, really. It's probably more like a 15 mil thick watch, really. Even though obviously it is 17 and a bit to the bezel. The overall width I got to be about 53. I actually got lower than Casio specs. I got 53, and I got about 54 point something to lug. So it's big, but one thing I will say is on the wrist, which I will show you in a bit, it actually feels bigger than it suggests. In my opinion, it feels bigger than this Mudmaster, definitely. So it's one of the biggest G-Shocks you can ever put on your wrist, and that's why but it's not uncomfortable, although it can get a bit sweaty underneath when you've had it on for a few hours. Because it's light, it is not uncomfortable, but it will look stupid on small wrists. I would not recommend anything lower than 6.5 really is the minimum you want to be inches to fit this watch on your wrist. So for sizing, it's going to be a problem for many people, but it has superb wrist presence. There's no question about that. It's an absolute beast on the wrist, and which is one reason why I love it. And it has a kind of unique slabby feel to it. I can't really explain why, but it feels like a big fat square on your wrist, even though it is more like a rectangle. But this is like the big daddy to the G-Shock squares. If you're like me, 7 and a bit inch wrists, I can't wear the G-Shock squares, unfortunately. You know, the 5600s and all them. They're just too small. I need to have this one, which is bigger, basically. Which is why I don't think I've featured many on my channel, although I have had some G-Shock squares, the smaller ones, but in my view they fit more like a 38, 39mm watch, which I never wear. So anyway, sizing is an interesting one. It is a beast of a watch. It's one of the biggest G-Shocks you can ever buy, but it is not heavy because it's only 88 grams. And that is a benefit. If it was heavier, it would be uncomfortable. If this came with a plastic or steel bracelet, and you can get a mod, I think it's J's and K's, or you can get like an aftermarket adapter and put it on a bracelet. I think that adding that additional 50 grams or whatever it is, even if it's plastic or steel, it'd be even heavier, it would add too much weight to the watch to make it comfortable all day, possibly, because of its size anyway. So the sizing is an interesting one. It's not going to be for everyone, but it is for me. Yes, I would like it slightly trimmed down, slightly, not too much, but slightly trimmed down. Maybe reduce the thickness a bit, and reduce it just a few mil, and then it would be better. But it has the presence, and they've gone for this ultra big style, and they've gone for ultra shock and vibration resistance, which is possibly why they've made it so big as well. Okay, let's talk about the dial. Now, this is the stealth model, so obviously it's not going to be as in your face as the positive models. By the way, they do this, and I'm told one of the non-affiliated Casio blog channels that I go on, well, it's not a channel, it's a blog website, sorry. They mentioned that Casio Japan in March this year said that they had discontinued the positive model version of this, which is yellow and black, with like a yellow positive or gold positive dial, which I've had that watch. I had it 4 or 5 years ago with the multiband and solar. I loved it, but at the time I felt it was too big, and I sold it a few years after it. But anyway, I will actually get it back, but I'm told this year that they've actually ceased production of at least the multiband, positive version, basically. Which I don't know why they would do that when they're still making the red and black, and they're still making this in a few different variations. They need a positive version of it because a lot of people are not going to like the negative version. Anyway, in positive it looks absolutely fantastic. You can see all the intricacies of the dial. Obviously in this version it's much more difficult to see. You know, ultimately there is a solar cell here that absorbs the fluorescent and non-fluorescent light to convert it into energy. It is quite a nice dial. I do like it. One thing I will say is in the positive version, it's one of the clearest and best displays on a G-Shock, other than the ones that have a completely different display technology that are in like the Pro-Trex and stuff, that they're much more expensive. But with this negative one, as long as you hit it at an angle, because ultimately I think this will be a twisted pneumatic panel, which have poor viewing angles. But, because see how it distorts there, see how the viewing angle distorts there? I know you can't really see this too good. That's because of the display, the limitation of the display technology. But the display technology that they will use will be low energy to give it the battery as long as possible. But it's not the most clearest negative. It is a little bit clearer in the gold, but in the positive, it's one of the most clearest dials you'll ever see on a G-Shock digital at this price point. And I'll show a picture of it. I will show a picture of it again in this video. So the dial, I like the simplicity of it. It does work. I'll show you the light as well. The light's good, as you can see. It is good, it is clear. And you can turn on the auto light function, which means when you put it on your wrist and angle it like that, it will automatically turn it on. Obviously, it will burn the battery out, but this is a solar, which means it'll probably last you 8 to 10 years. The actual solar charging battery inside of it, which can be swapped if you really wanted to do so. So the dial and presentation, in my opinion, is good. I would much prefer the positive dial, but if you want this blacked out style, this is what you're getting. I like the kind of square, in your face, bulky, macho look that it has. That's my cup of tea as a weekend watch or a daily beater. Obviously, it wouldn't look completely right with a suit. Not that I ever wear them or anything, but you know, this is a sports watch ultimately, a casual sports watch. Now then, I'll talk about a few modes. Obviously, you've got your standard modes that you come with many G-Shocks. It doesn't have much more above that. The buttons are pretty difficult to press. Stopwatch, timer. It's all nice, you know, you're getting all your standard stuff. It doesn't have Bluetooth. See, it says received there. That means has it received the radio signal from Anthon? Obviously, you can adjust stuff. You can have 2 times. So obviously, it has GMT functionality. So you can press get there to make it get the radio signal, but it does it I think 6 times a day anyway, automatically. You can get this watch or this series. You can get a sub-series that don't have multiband, that are cheaper by about, well, it depends. I mean, they can be 50 quid, 30 quid more even. On Amazon now, they're about 30 quid cheaper. Yes, I would suggest it if you're not bothered about the multiband or you don't live in a multiband country. Being in Britain, we're multiband enabled. So I always get it. If I can, I get the multiband version. When I eventually move to Asia, to Southeast Asia, there is no multiband functionality there. There's no radio towers that will compatible with this technology. And so, as of right now anyway, other than China, but that's not Southeast Asia. And so, so I will not bother getting multiband there. Although I suppose resale value, you know, it retains better resale value because it has better functionality. I'll talk a bit about so basically Casio, in some of their watches, some of their G-Shocks, they put something called alpha gel. And what it is it's basically a type of silicon gel that they put inside of the case, essentially, that gives it additional shock and vibration resistance. I know that it's on some Gravity Masters. I think it's on a few Mud Masters. And it is on, I'm told, it is on this series as well. So that's one reason why it is regarded as one of the toughest G-Shocks you can buy. Not that most people would need an even tougher G-Shock than a standard G-Shock, because under normal circumstances you'd never be able to break these things unless you actively tried to smash it with everything you had. You know, I've put a video in, I can't remember if I've released the video yet, but I've done a video on why G-Shocks are the best overall watches for value and for function and features at the price point. There is no one else better than it, and I've done a video on that, and I've put the video where they blow up Casio blow up I think it's a GXW-56BB-1ER, which is a 2020 model of the G Steel line, and they actually blow it up. I'm not joking, they blow it up, and it does survive the blast. So that shows what, how strong these things are. And so yeah, this one has this alpha gel. The construction is obviously massive. It is built like a tank. It is literally built like a tank, which is what I love about G-Shocks in general. So that's just a little bit of information there. Most people will not care about the fact it has alpha gel or it doesn't. I mean, ultimately we care about the end result. We don't really care about whether it has alpha gel or whatever it has. But I just pointed that out. It's just an interesting little fact. Now, if we go on to the case back and pushers, the pushers are nice circular. They've got an imprint on there, so they're nice. They are difficult to press though, pretty difficult. They're not, you have to really give it a good press. But they're not as difficult as the Mudman or the Mudmaster. The Mudman and the Mudmaster are even more difficult to press. But these are pretty difficult. The case back is a nice stainless steel one. Lots of etching on there. It's screwed. Well, it is stainless steel with this plastic outer. Tough Solar multiband, 20 bar, 200 meter water resist, has the module reference there. 320, 3220, and GXW-56BB. Now then, let's talk about the band. The band is obviously a resin plastic. It's comfortable. It's a mix between supple and tough. It's not as tough as the, well, it's not as it's more supple than the Mudmaster, in my opinion. It has really good support where it would go around the wrist here at the top. I like that, and yet this part is nice and supple. I'll put it on my wrist to show you. Actually, I'm going to do a comparison of them both, but it's not as thick as the Mudmaster either. So it's a good band. It's a really good band. I'll put it on. Yeah, that's nice and comfortable. The buckle is stainless steel with like some kind of polyvinyl coating. Looks like a gunmetal or something coating. So it is painted, but it is stainless steel. It's heavy duty stainless steel, which is what I love. I absolutely hate plastic buckles. I have no idea why Casio have done that on the Gravity Master, or on the Gravity Master that I reviewed on my channel recently. It needs to be stainless steel. I've seen some of them where the keepers are not actually painted. The keepers are just stainless steel finish, which is fine also, adds a nice little colour to it. And the keeper is plastic. I love nice easy if you ever wanted to swap it, very easy to do with screws. Same as the rubber, the plastic band, screwed in, really nice design. It is a comfy band. The watch itself though, as being on the bigger side, is not going to be super comfortable for everyone because of its size, but I can say I have it pretty loose. What have I got it on? 4. I have it on setting 4. Obviously it's a twin tan design. I like that as well, but that is comfortable. Look, it's a tiny bit top heavy because obviously, but having said that, it feels nice and balanced. It's not super top heavy, which would ruin the feel of the watch. But that is light and it is comfortable. The band is nice and comfortable, which is the main thing really on bands. But as you can see, that has big, fat, chunky wrist presence. That is a unique look that, again, I don't know any watches out there that look like this. It is an unusual look and it's an eye catcher, but it is an even bigger eye catcher in a positive model. And I've put the picture on into this video already. And I think for most people, you're going to want to get the positive one, which I'm told is discontinued this year. And it is very difficult to get online. I've did a little quick look and I couldn't find it. This one is easy to get online, get it on Amazon in an unbelievable deal. I got this off Amazon for around, it might have gone up now, I can't make any guarantees on that. I got it for around 130 quid, which for the functions and features of that is a steal, is a straight and utter steal. I'm not kidding you. I'm not the biggest fan when I'm just not the biggest fan of all negative displays. I like them to be positive in total honesty. Interestingly, the watch is not in the Master of G range. The Master of G range is stuff like your Mud Masters, Gravity Master, Gulfman, Rangeman, and I can't believe I've had all them watches, but I've just not brought them onto the channel. But I've had the Rangeman. The Rangeman in positive, that would be one of, if I was going to recommend all digital Gshock, it would probably be this in positive, or for people that don't want this size, get the Rangeman. The Rangeman in positive is fantastic, and in fact that in negative with a bit of red on it is also absolutely fantastic. They do this model in various colours. In fact, they brought one out this year which is a super crazy, like green, I think blue, grey, multicoloured, like strange looking piece. Obviously that's not really my cup of tea, but it's an interesting one. But that doesn't have multiband, but I wanted the multiband. So I am going to pick up anyway the positive one again. I'll probably bring it on the channel, but it might be used because it's difficult to get it new. Unless you import it from Japan, but it's expensive. But ultimately, this King G, it does what it says on the tin. It's not my overall favourite Gshock. No, it's not. I prefer the Mudmaster. But I think that it ticks a lot of boxes. And furthermore, it's an interesting one to add to your Gshock collection. Because there are not many that look like this, other than the Gshock squares, but this is their daddy basically. How could it be improved? It could be improved by giving us a superior negative dial, change the technology, give us a better viewing angle and more crisper, higher contrast dial, display, and they could give us Bluetooth. This model doesn't have Bluetooth. Obviously, when it came out in 2010, I don't think there was any Bluetooth watches. I know there was very few. And they could slightly reduce the size, but I know some people wouldn't want that because those that buy this watch want the size to be huge. The band, I don't think really can be improved, although to support it, they've made it taper quite aggressively, but it is fat at the top. It is really fat. That will add to the overall feel of the watch being big on the wrist. Maybe they could make this a bit more tapered. But again, I'm not complaining. It's a great effort. And at the price I paid for it, I can't complain. I'm gonna compare this to the Mudmaster and Gravity Master so you can have a good comparison of which one that I would recommend buying. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this little review. As I've said, with Casios, there's that many variety that you can get with the Gshocks that this channel could only be about Gshocks. Obviously, it's not going to be about that. It's about all affordable watches. But I do love them. I love collecting them. And this is another great model to add to my collection. So yeah, so it's been Dave. Hope you have a great weekend. Cheers.